Oh, there it is. I think it's going to do it now.
Yeah, just got the message.
All right. So, good morning, Star Wars family. Welcome to episode 38 of the Unifying Force. This morning's topic, we are going to be talking about the Bad Batch. The spoiler ban, the 48 hours is well past. And we're going to talk about the two premiere episodes of season 2. And in addition to that topic, or in conjunction with that, we're going to be talking about one of the catchphrases of the show, which is, do in fact good soldiers follow orders? And, try and talk about that some in context of the real world, and more specifically, really, probably more so in popular culture, movies and television. So, start off a little bit with Catherine. What did you think about the first 2 episodes of season 2?
I think the animation's a lot better. The level of detail in the environments is really extraordinary. I like that they aged up Omega a bit. The first season kind of had this 3 men and a baby type vibe to it, which I didn't really care for. And I like that I'm not sure how much time's supposed to have passed. She seems a little older. Yeah, another heist episode. They're still doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, they go to Count Dooku's planet. Okay. But I take it that since it makes sense that they're still using clones, because it's not like they're just going to kill the loyalists just because, they're starting to hire stormtroopers now. But I do wonder from that ending where they're going to go with that, because they didn't really specify, like, was that clone the only person who witnessed Clone Force 99? Were there other witnesses? Because if not, then that corporal or whatever could lie in the report and get away with it. Otherwise, that's going to cause problems. But yeah, for the most part, it was okay. It was kind of a little bit of same old from more heist missions. But I like that she's older and the animation's a lot better, so, which is awesome. See that curve.
Absolutely, is they have taken it up a notch, a step up for season 2. Gio, any comments? I know you haven't necessarily seen all of it, but from what you have taken a look at.
Yeah, so I think that I like the feel of the Bad Batch. I think it harkens back to that sort of Saturday morning serial kind of feeling, the sort of Flash Gordon themes that kind of inspired George Lucas in the first place to sort of create something of his own. So I do appreciate that aspect of it, and I think that we've had a lot of different types of kind of Star Wars material recently, and looking at the Bad Batch in the context of that, I think it's a nice change of tone from say the Mandalorian, which has much more of that Western feel to it, and also Andor, which was a very kind of boots on the ground, gritty espionage type spy drama. And I think that it's while I'm still sort of catching up a little bit, the kind of, it comes back to that old phrase that we sometimes talk about, that feel of Star Wars, which I guess is kind of unique to everyone, but that sort of free-spirited, adventurous feel to the episodes. And I've just been going through sort of season 1 and the kind of missions they go on with Sid, for example, as the kind of dispenser of these missions kind of week to week, I think is a nice contrast from some of the other Star Wars stuff we've been getting. And I think that the kind of exploration of what it means to be a soldier, there is a little bit of that going on in season 1, in terms of once the war that they were trained for has ended, or what's next for this elite squad. So I think it raises some interesting questions while still being a sort of fun adventure feel type show. And yeah, I think it's a great part of kind of the new Star Wars material going forward.
Well, let me start with the fact that I love this show. I love the Bad Batch from the beginning of season one, the first, ginormously long episode that was really, a part of it. Another side, we wouldn't have necessarily thought that we needed to see yet another side of Order 66, but that really I felt added a lot to it. I love season one. The plot line, even though through the middle, because this is a long show compared to all the other Disney shows. This is not a 6 or an 8 episode arc. This is 16 episodes. So the middle kind of gets to be a little bit of a slog, a little bit formulaic, a little bit repetitious. The first 2 episodes of season 2, I mean, that was kind of my feeling of it. Is yeah, the animation is great. It's gorgeous. It is a step up. I do look forward to them explaining a little bit, and let's see exactly what period of time this is. I mean, we're noticing there's a different generation of clone troopers. It's a different style of the helmet that I think we started to see some at the end of season 1. So obviously some things are going in the Empire, but from the trailer that we saw at Celebration, and because we saw a lot of that first episode, I was expecting more. I was expecting some more plot. I was expecting, and maybe it will happen going down the road. Is Catherine was alluding to, we got an introduction at the end of who I guess is going to be this season's big bad. We've got like a mid-level imperial officer that's probably going to be our person. We were introduced to a new pirate who I don't know if Rhea Perlman's going to be on the way out and Sid's not going to be as big of a factor in this season, but we've got a new kind of pirate. But I was hoping, and we can get your reactions to this in a minute. When I saw her, I was hoping, and I don't know if timelines even line up exactly right. I was hoping for Han's first wife, is from her look and her feel, and that she was a pirate or smuggler or whatever in that kind of thing. Is I was hoping that we were gonna give us a character that we know from the EU and kind of add some more to her. And I don't know the name. Is maybe she's not someone random, and maybe someone in the chat or the comments can tell us. Is maybe that's not a random person, or maybe we'll learn more about her. But these 2 episodes just felt like, okay, it's more of the same, and not more of the same from the beginning episode, the first episode, or the last couple of episodes of season 1. It felt like it was more of the same from the middle kind of slog part of season 1, where it's formulaic. We're over. We're doing this again. We're taking a heist. We're going to get a thing. And I'm ready for this show to give me more. And maybe I'm jaded by Andor. Maybe I've come from that place now, and I've seen what kind of storytelling that can be done. And that's what I want. Or, I've been watching our Monday show, watching Rebels Revisited, and seeing the kind of storytelling that's done on Star Wars, or that was done, years ago on Star Wars Rebels. And I want that in my Bad Batch now. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is a repetitive show. First season was way too long. And this is how they're starting season 2. Then I don't know.
I think it's
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's understandable that you might want to expect a little bit more, because as you mentioned, in theory, it's something that you love, the idea of the Bad Batch and the kind of characters having this kind of elite clone squad, and seeing what goes next for them following Order 66. And I think Rebels seem to have, although I guess all Star Wars animation will have these kind of ups and downs over the course of a longer season. I think you can, our minds are drawn to kind of the wider story and kind of the longer themes that ran through Rebels, and maybe that's what sort of comes to mind first. And the Bad Batch in tone is does feel like a very different show. And then talking on tone, I do understand what you mean when you kind of reflect on Andor. Well, I wouldn't say jaded on Andor. I would say maybe you're inspired by Andor and how it really showed a level of intricate detail and great planning behind everything that, as I mentioned before, I really think it's not just the benchmark, but kind of the high watermark that a lot of TV shows could aspire to, not just in the Star Wars side of things. So just with that in mind, I think it's natural to want more and expect more. But as with everything, you've got to manage our expectations a little bit and just see where it takes us. But I completely understand like the kind of criticisms you can have if the episodes are feeling like the kind of middle of season one, that they're just kind of, here we go again, another sort of mission of the week. And when we've been treated to something like Andor that is that long form storytelling and a kind of ratcheting up of tension week on week, then there is a kind of big falling off point for almost any series. I think if you're going to compare the next kind of Star Wars show to come along, you could argue that's the slight price you pay to have a really high quality show, is that the next one has a lot to live up to, and it can be difficult to kind of hit that high level again. But I kind of do trust in the fact that you've got the same creative team and kind of Dave Filoni, Jennifer Corbett, or Brad Rao to sort of give something more going forward. And I still do like the kind of the sort of adventurous feeling to the show. But then that could just be me focusing a little bit more on season one and the kind of feelings that it gives from those episodes.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I like that it's an adventure. I like that there's stuff happening. I like that this is a juxtaposition to Andor. It's not the slow burn. It's action. It's action. It's action. It's pew 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 all the time. I'm enjoying that. I just wish that there was a seemingly higher point behind it too. And you mentioned, yeah, we're looking at this elite Clone Force 99. I'd like this show to be a little bit more like, Navy SEALs or something, because the first two episodes, Clone Force 99 sucked. Their military tactics were crap. Okay. It's coming into the tone and the funny tone that, okay, we've got a plan. Here's the plan. Wrecker always screws it up. And something happens and there's this big chase. I mean, that the entire family of crab being things is chasing them down after. I don't know that we needed explanation on this, but why is there a random Foot Locker full of treasure or whatever hidden amongst a crab planet? I mean, that's kind of like Disney taking the plot from Moana, where the big shiny crab comes out and sings "I'm shiny" because it has the thing. But even in the second episode, where okay, Serrano, we're going to Dooku's palace. Yes, there's all of this stuff, and okay, we're going to steal a couple of Foot Lockers worth of jewels and credits. It's like, again, maybe I'm expecting more from the Mandalorian. I'm thinking Bo-Katan, Din Djarin would have tried to take that entire transport. Okay, there's like 40 some odd soldiers all told, and how many of those could be on the transport is you didn't try and steal an entire container. You didn't try and steal the entire transport. You're going for like a 2x3 box full of stuff. And granted, it's valuable stuff, but then you mess that up by getting locked in a container and this and that. It gave us this much of the kind of story that I wanted to see. Again, having listened to like Dooku Jedi Lost and knowing about the population of Serrano and knowing more about that from extended sources, we got the guy in the woods that's living in hiding because the Empire has firebombed his city and because Dooku is stolen from the people, and that's what I want to see. And let me back up and go, maybe that's where this is going, because a few of the little pieces and little parts were alluding to who was it? Was it Tech or was it Echo? I think it was Echo that's getting kind of frustrated with what they're doing. He's kind of expressing that same little frustration. It's like the Empire's out there, the Empire's doing terrible things, is we should be doing more than this kind of mission of the week deal. Oh no.
Yeah, like I said, just more of the same.
Yeah. So having kind of reviewed, and we've got and it's fun. Let's kind of try and associate this with cinema tropes and things that are going on. And one of the big lines is, Crosshair's not, we haven't seen where Crosshair is and what Crosshair is going to be doing in season 2 yet. One of the big lines is good soldiers follow orders. Is, these guys are clones. They're supposed to be programmed with an inhibitor chip to well, not even, I don't know if the inhibitor chip is what's supposed to make, I think that was just an Order 66 Palpatine thing, but they're supposed to be conditioned from birth to be good soldiers, to be susceptible to taking orders, and that's their main purpose. Now, these guys are the genetic mutations and they're not, but Crosshair's line, it's just good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. That's what we do, is we're given an order, we have to do it, and he's becomes at odds with his brothers because of that. So what do we think about that in film and television? Is that at odds with the trope? Who wants to take it first?
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on the circumstances and stuff. Good soldiers follow orders or not. But yeah, they're conditioned to follow orders, except for that one for 66, which is what the chip was for. So, yeah, I mean, it's just it was kind of like a line they came up with to, I guess, try and make it seem creepier that they were turning on everybody. But yeah, again, I guess it depends on the circumstance or what the order is, or if it conflicts with their ideology or not, if they're going to do it anyway. Because a lot of officers got fragged in Vietnam because it's like, yeah, we're not following those orders,
Right. Well, I mean, if you go and you look at the soldiers code and the creed that all, at least U.S. military soldiers, are supposed to swear by when inducted into the military, is yes, you must follow orders, but you must follow, for an order to be given, it must be a lawfully given order. It comes from the right place in the chain of command, and it must be a moral order. It must, it cannot be an immoral order. Is soldiers are sworn to be combatant against other combatants, other military combatants, not to follow improper orders to bring civilians into harm's way and that sort of thing. And I think that's kind of what they're hitting at in the Bad Batch with, yeah, these clones, they're following orders. They're from the Republic, but when the Republic kind of switches to the Empire and it all goes bad, they're still following orders. And but there's even to the point of why the clones had to have an inhibitor chip put in, is that's what's making the clones still follow the illegal and immoral orders coming from Palpatine's point of view, is that keeps them following these orders when the politics of their army, the politics of who's controlling them changes sides. So I think it's kind of saying that even the clones without the inhibitor chip and how susceptible they were to following the orders they were given probably would not have just started executing Jedi without that chip to override their desire or their command to wait. That should be a moral order. Go ahead.
It's like the My Lai massacre. Soldiers are following orders.
Yeah,
That was the defense that they used to get off, and they did.
well, it's
Right.
It's an ugly thing throughout history. If you want to really dig into it, the just following orders is a lot of defense of the Nazi war trials. Is these were our orders. This is what we were told to do. We carried those out. And I think that was in those trials, a lot of times that was not given as a legal excuse because of, no, you should have known that was not a legal and moral order. Now, looking in the history of militaries around the world and the U.S. military in particular, we have had a number of Medal of Honor winners who did not follow orders, who, he'd go off and do something heroic when they've been told to pull out. And a lot of this, I think, is some of what that is alluded to, that behind the scenes, that subtext of the Bad Batch is you're going to disobey orders because of the brotherhood you have with your fellow soldiers. I wish to goodness I had it pulled up, but I closed the window. The name of the Medal of Honor winner in, I believe it was Afghanistan, who was ordered to pull out. There's a lot of U.S. troops trapped in a particular valley in Afghanistan, and he's ordered to pull out. He's ordered specifically not to go back in there to help them. And he and his buddy commandeer a Humvee, and they make not one, not two, but 5, 6, 8, 9 trips back into this valley in a Humvee, evacuating American and Afghan troopers and fighting the entire time, becoming wounded themselves. And I think President Obama awarded him the Medal of Honor for that. And there are other examples throughout history as well. So is that what it is? I don't know. Is that what the Bad Batch is alluding to? Is that, yeah, the bad guy is the one that's following orders?
Well, again, it goes back to who's given the order and what the order is.
Yeah, I think that the just the idea of having that entire storyline, that there was almost a switch in this entire army to sort of go against their their programming to be in the Clone Wars and to fight on the side of the Republic, to just kind of switch allegiances, and the fact that it's portrayed in this kind of very kind of creepy, unsettling way, in that it's, you know, like a switch has been turned and there's this sudden brainwashing, you know, good soldiers follow orders. It was it just gets repeated and repeated. We saw that with the end of the Clone Wars, and how Captain Rex kind of suffered that same sort of aspect, that he was just suddenly going to turn on Ahsoka at the end of the Siege of Mandalore, and it was quite a heavy and like concerted effort to overturn that. It is interesting that they have this story idea of having the inhibitor chip, and how it's essential neural programming that would kind of change the thoughts and behavior of a person, because essentially what you see is that the clones are just tools of war, and instruments to bring about the kind of command of Palpatine, however nefarious and devastating that is. And I think that you could look at it as a kind of critique of warfare in itself, in that you're sort of suggesting that the idea of just simply you know, almost turning a 180 on your kind of initial orders to go about and follow something that's cruel and still wanting to prolong the war once the sort of Clone War had ended, is a way of sort of suggesting that almost the futility of war, and how it's a case of something that is, you know, callous and traumatic and so devastating to huge groups of people. And you see that we're seeing that in a fictional universe, but you could argue that it's kind of reflecting on the military aspects that are in our real world, and how you know, just really devastating they can be. So I think that the idea of having this small group to try and want to overcome that is, I guess, like a sort of message to sort of say that you know, maybe there is another way things can be resolved. I wouldn't say it's a sort of pacifist message, the way that one could argue the aspects of the Jedi have been shown to be in their sort of best moments. And but I think it does kind of speak to the idea broadly of how psychologically a group of people, you could say soldiers, and the clones had been sort of accelerated from a very short time, had this sort of training indoctrinated into them, how it can be hard to sort of overcome that, and it kind of speak to struggles that you know, anyone can sort of have to want to overcome their sort of forced behaviors in a way, and just, yeah, I think it does raise questions about like the utility of soldiers and how they can be used almost as disposable weapons when we're talking about, you know, lives here, and how it's something that is you know, could hold so much more value if it wasn't sort of geared towards kind of destruction and fighting and conflict.
Well, I think you kind of hit a nail right on the head there into why initially, when the Clone Wars backstory was given, is why they were clones, is they were made and created as disposable weapons, you know, and this plot line behind, I would say, if the Clone Wars had come, you know, were coming out today instead of however many years ago that it did, is that this would be kind of an essay on the real world, is what happens when you're a part of a military organization, you know, from World War II, or between World War I and World War II, is you're a nationalist army, you're a German soldier, and the Nazi party takes over. Or more poignant and today is the Russians decide to invade Ukraine. Is, you're in the military as a source of honor, as a livelihood, a job, as a family tradition, and the government decides to, maybe not a 180, but at least a 90-degree turn and go sideways, and this sort of thing happens, is what happens to that group of soldiers. I mean, in the old days, I think that's the kind of sort of political message that George would have been telling, because I mean, what is the empire if not space Nazis? But the Clone Wars having this backstory, I don't know if it's that much modern political message being put in it in the Bad Batch or not. But yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about something that's a little bit lighter than real world applications of this. Do real world, do fantasy world fictional movie and film and television soldiers, are the good soldiers following orders, or is there this humongous film trope that tells us that the complete and total opposite of that? Like I'll start with one, which is I'm going to go with, we are completely and totally set up to believe that a good soldier, a soldier in this military organization, if you want to do something heroic and save the world or the universe, it's like, no, you are going to throw orders out the window. You are going to ignore it, and you are going to do whatever it is that you feel is right to do that. And, example number 1 through 27,000 is Captain James T. Kirk. Starfleet is essentially a military organization. Granted, their mission is supposed to be exploration, but any and every time to save the day, to save the planet, to save the universe, James T. Kirk is going to ignore Starfleet orders and go with his gut, go with his feeling. A specific example, we've talked about a little bit on the show before, is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Yeah, by that point in Kirk's career, in the movie itself, when the admirals in Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco state, they're on comms, they're being attacked, they're specifically telling Kirk not to come. They're like looking at each other and giving each other the side eyes, like, he's coming. He's going to do that. Is he will move mountains or universes. He's going to do what he's going to ignore it. So does anybody have any moments in film or television that would illustrate either good soldiers completely not following orders, or the opposite, the good soldiers following orders?
There's probably a bunch, but I'm not pulling any off the top of my head. Let's see. Well, you don't see it on screen. It's in Apocalypse Now, when Kurtz goes into the village to inoculate all the children, and then says a few hours later, after they leave, these villagers catch up to him and say that the rebels came through with the NBA and chopped off all the arms of the inoculated kids. And so he decides to take it upon himself to go hunt them down and kill them, and before the rebels go to any of the other villages that they visit. And yeah, he's the good guy in that version of which is kind of ironic because it's adapted from a book where he's unabashed with the villain, and yet in the book or in the movie, it's like, well, then he did a good thing. It's like, undoubtedly he obviously broke ranks. He wasn't following orders, but he went and stopped a group of sadistic rebels from mutilating and killing a bunch of kids. and stopped him from continuing to do that. And for that, he got blacklisted by the military. And they're like, tell the what's his name, the Sheen character, you gotta go kill that guy. So
Yeah.
that's a example. And yeah, granted, he's leading his own little, quasi de facto kingdom or whatever when he gets there, but he wasn't really evil. Funny that he wasn't really evil in the movie like he was in the book. And so it's like that was, I think, a good example of good soldier not following orders.
I think you could maybe look at Saving Private Ryan as a great sort of story of how there was this kind of set way, and the Allied forces had a very specific to retake this kind of land area, but to go and rescue one of their own, they had to kind of break file and rank and kind of think outside of the generic orders that were coming from above, to go and pull off this rescue. I think it's a great example of just the idea that there could be some great need to go against the kind of didactic way of instructing soldiers, and looking at the kind of the moral question of well, if it's to save one of your own, then how would you go about kind of overturning the orders you've been given, and kind of work outside those parameters a little bit. So that would be, I guess, the first one that sort of comes to mind. And because that film is so impactful and such a kind of grim and devastating portrayal of war that came across in a blockbuster way, I think it makes the kind of message a little more memorable than the sort of hundreds of thousands of depictions of war that we've seen on the big and small screen. So yeah, that would be one example for me.
So Saving Private Ryan was completely on my list as well. It was how the order was actually to go and save Private Ryan. That was the order. And the men, at least Tom Hanks's character, is originally like questioning that. Why are you risking me and all of my men? He's following the order, but he's not wanting to follow the order. He's like, we've got to go behind enemy lines, and we've been ordered to save Private Ryan. That is the mission. But where he breaks that is at the end. There Ryan is tasked with holding the bridge, is holding this ground in the town, and he doesn't want to leave the only brothers he have left. It's a brotherhood story, like I kind of think the Bad Batch is trying to tell us. Is Clone Force 99, if there had been one mutated clone, if it had been Hunter, would he have just gone along with it? If it had just been Wrecker, if it had just been Echo or Tech, would they just have gone along with the Empire? But because there was that core group of them, Ryan refused the order at that point to just get up and go with Tom Hanks and his group and leave the theater of battle. But he insisted on staying and defending the bridge with his soldier brothers until then. So it was kind of a weird juxtaposition where the order was to get out, but they decided to break the order to stay in. Some other examples I think you see that are similar to a kind of a Bad Batch kind of thing is, you guys seen Universal Soldier? It's Universal Soldier.
No.
Okay. Well, Universal Soldier is, I think it's a Kurt Russell movie. Is the soldiers are all from birth, and I'm not sure. I don't remember if they were clone born or if they were natural born and then taken or whatever. But they're born, they're conditioned, they're soldiers from minute one, and they grow them up to be these universal soldiers and weapons. And then the Kurt Russell character, for whatever reason, figures out that what we're doing is not the right thing and ends up fighting the other conditioned from birth soldiers to do the moral right thing.
Mm.
Another one that I'm thinking is not First Blood, but Rambo movies beyond First Blood. All the rest of them, where Rambo is given this order to go in and document or do something, and he figures out that, wait, no, this is not what you said it was. Is I'm going back to Vietnam, I think is in Rambo 2, and just told to see what's going on and report back out, but he finds unexpectedly POWs, and what does Rambo do? Ignores the order of Colonel Troutman or whoever it is that's giving it, and chooses to save the
Yes.
day.
Stargate was
Yeah.
another one when you mentioned Kurt
Yes.
Russell. They're ordered to take this nuclear bomb that they have and blow up whatever's on the other side of the Stargate. But after they meet the people there and realize they're just primitive, peaceful people being oppressed by this high-tech alien organization, they instead decide to send the nuke on Ra's ship and blow him to Kingdom Come instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I take it the assumption, if I remember correctly, I think the assumption at the end either he was going to lie and said that he did the job when he got back, or maybe he was going to tell the truth, because the movie because it ends when when the Kurt Russell character steps back in, so you don't see what his report is going to be. But he
So I
ignored the order.
think what's we see from later versions of that is from the Stargate show, I guess. The original, we're like, your report said that this was done or whatever, that Daniel Jackson was killed or whatever, when he was really just living with Shari on the other side of the Stargate in what was it, Abydos? I don't know. So that's what's at the end of the Bad Batch right there. It's like, I'm not going to falsify that report, and he gets killed for it. Is like Kurt Russell character is like, well, for the greater good, I'm going to falsify that report. I think it's larger concept of military movies where we're not seeing whether the truth or the following orders is a good thing or a bad thing. It is highly fuzzy, and what Catherine's been saying all along is it depends on where the order is from and where it's coming from. I think that's a lot of the plot of the name of the movie with Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson.
A Few Good Men.
Few Good Men.
Like,
Yeah.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. It's like Nicholson is internalizing and keeping that truth out of the court because of what he thinks is the good that Tom Cruise, that Cruise can't, that doesn't need to be out there. Another,
and also the way they present it in the show. I think was it Admiral Rampart, what his name was, and he says, "Look, I just need you to lie here because they were reported dead," and that was the official story that went down. And it seems like a simple white lie, because he could say, "Look, why don't you lie on this report now, and then we'll go hunt them down later." But he doesn't really say that. He doesn't seem to have a game plan because he didn't ask him either. Were there any other people who can verify that this guy's, that they're still alive? So it's like, it's not clear exactly if he's going to take it upon himself to hunt them down or not. And maybe if he does start sending out feelers about it, I bet Crosshair's going to hear about it and take on the mission himself. Like, no, I'm going to deal with this. And it's like this idea that I need you to falsify this report, because if you don't falsify the report, that'll make it look, the previous report will look wrong. Will be bad.
Right.
Like in the beginning of the third season of Fargo, and the neighbor's falsely accused of killing his neighbor's wife, and he's like, well, it's not me. I'm clearly not the description of the person who is registered living at this house. And you have my actual register over here. He's like, are you telling me the state made the Stasi agent's like, you telling me the state made a mistake? And now that type of stuff, especially real in places over there like Russia, where it's like, oh, we can't possibly have it look like the state made a mistake. And and Rampart's sort of doing the same thing there, where, oh, we can't contradict that. It's already on record. So you have to lie to keep the previous record consistent. And I could see why a clone would see, even though they're raised from birth to be good soldiers, follow orders and all that, would be like, well, that really messes with protocol and is not rational thing. It's not a rational minded thing to do. Hence why he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, and gets shot for it, which I'm thinking is also going to pave the way for why all the Imperial officers and stuff are going to try and usher in the age of phasing out clones and replacing them with recruits, because it's much easier to bribe a recruit to do the right thing than it is, or to do whatever the boss wants instead of a clone.
Right. That's what I'm getting from the first two episodes, and especially that ending is, I want to see where it's going. I mean, the first two for me, again, were just but especially at that ending, I want to see where it's going. Is this going to continue to tell us the story of how clone troopers and why clone troopers were phased out and replaced with stormtroopers? Why really the troopers became just wholly inefficient from everything we've seen in the Clone Wars and show how efficient the clone army of the Republic was, and how just bumbling comedic afterthought the stormtroopers are in A New Hope. I think potentially we want to know why this kind of mid-level officer cares that much and why it matters. But that's the kind of thing that we were seeing in Andor. Some of the compelling characters were the kind of middle management ISB agent, Space Ellen or whatever, that just what their story is in the middle of the imperial bureaucracy or military machine. Perhaps we'll see that, hopefully, and something like that will go. So we're going to be about that time to do. Let's go with predictions for the next episode, the next couple of episodes. Where do you see the series going from what you have seen so far?
I think Corsair is going to find out about the fact that they're still alive, either through the report, like Rampart is going to say something, or he's going to screw up. The guy's going to find out, and Corsair is going to go after them and probably lead a more competent team this time around. And as far as I feel that because there's another 14 or 16 episodes to go, then I think there might be a lot of filler in the form of more heists, and eventually, I do know that some of the critics were given all of the episodes in advance except for the last two, suggesting that it probably won't be until the last two episodes where they finally reveal the truth behind the Omega mystery thing, which is, if that's true, that's a little frustrating that, you introduce something in the first two episodes of season one and you drag it out for like 30 episodes before you come back around to visit it again. So,
well, see, that was barely even alluded to at all in these two episodes that we just saw.
Oh yeah, they didn't mention word one about it. It's like, it's like, oh yeah, there's Omega.
Right. Gio, what do you think is going to go on? What's going to happen?
I think that we're going to have, we'll have more kind of almost standalone adventures and kind of a one-off episode skirmish missions. And I think that it does sound like, just what from Catherine said, the kind of reveal to the longer questions that have been lingering since the beginning of the series will be coming in the kind of conclusion to it all. But yeah, so but although having said all that, so that's as far as my prediction goes. But I will say that I again have been enjoying these the kind of usually just the change in tone, and I feel almost that it's having that kind of crew going on a mission kind of feel to episodes works better in animation, and I think can be more accepted by some audiences in this format than if it were to happen in a live action series. So I kind of like the idea of just having a series that's continuing on from some of these characters that we've seen long established in the Clone Wars, and seeing what happens. I think the Bad Batch is a fun and entertaining show, even if it's not kind of telling like a tight story and having really fleshed out characters with many sides and aspects to them. That's the kind of stuff that we saw in Andor, and I loved that. But this is a very different type of show, and I'm still on board with it.
Okay. So predictions, I think we're going to go is the pirate that was introduced in Sid's office is we're going to see some more of her and what's her backstory, and she's going to be figure prominently into this season, and we'll see how that goes. And I assume that our mid-level officer from the end that's brought in to kill a clone and is in there, we're going to see how he factors into the whole deal, and does he have some further motivation other than just, oh, I'm going to kill this guy because that looks bad on my report that they're still alive? Could he be like somebody that's really seeing the error of the Empire's ways, like Callus eventually did in Rebels? Did he have to kill the clone trooper and do the bad thing to keep it secret that Clone Forces 99 is still alive for their sake? I think that's a reach. I don't know if they're going there, but it would be nice to see something like that. I think we're going to have to see back what Crosshair is doing now, where didn't we leave in the last episode that Crosshair is still on Camino? Did we see how he?
Well, they left him there, and I think they mentioned something about how there were going to be other backup or something showing up that would have picked him up.
Okay.
Like they weren't like leaving him there to die or to be abandoned, and certainly Crosshair didn't tell anybody about how he got cornered by the Bad Batch.
Right, but see, that's the kind of weird thing though in this is depending on how Crosshair got picked up and where he is, Crosshair knew they were still alive. So,
right, but if whoever wrote the report that, because that's the thing, we don't know exactly who wrote the report saying that they were dead. Like, did Crosshair falsify the report, or if it was somebody else who knew they were there, is he going to bother correcting it? Because if he says, if somebody else wrote the report and he finds out that the official story is that they're dead, if he corrects that and says, actually, no, they cornered me at gunpoint and they took off, it's like, well, are they going to put him in charge at that point of going after him? Probably not. And so he probably wants to do that himself. So I would imagine that if he didn't write the report, he's going to keep his mouth shut about it. Or maybe he did write the report and falsified it on his own, because that final episode was really weird, the way they just kind of let him go. It's like, yeah, no, it's like you don't have to kill him, but you don't just leave him there to be picked up so he can go continue terrorizing people.
Right. See, that's what I think is going to be revealed, and something that needs to be revealed going forward. What's happened is, because if Crosshair is falsifying reports or allowing reports to be falsified, he's no longer good soldiers following orders. I'm doing exactly what where his would his ego factor in, and him falsifying a report is not specifically really following an order. You're not doing things the way that you should be, like you've been saying all along that should be done. So we're going to have to see what that Crosshair story is to see where exactly this season is going. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be really interesting because I want to know why, some episodes are being released as twos, like this first one, but there's later in peppered throughout the season, there's other 2-episode drops that are scheduled in. And I want to know why. Is
Well,
it
probably it's because of the way it's written. Like this episode ends, the first episode literally ended on a hard cut to black as the shipping containers are falling out of the back of the cargo plane. And it's like, that's a really exciting cliffhanger initially, but you would get over it quickly enough to say, well, that's not really much of a satisfying episode by itself, so we got to drop 2 of them. And so it's probably a repeat of things like that. Like, episodes that aren't strong enough on their own, so we'll drop 2, like they did with Andor dropping the first 3.
potentially, but we shall see as we go along. Well, anyway, thank you all for joining us. Several people have been in and out. As those of you that are watching and coming in and out of the chat, ask us questions, drop questions. If you've got comments, if you've got more examples, even if you're not watching this live, we do periodically monitor the chats and the comments on the episode as you watch this sometime in the future. And if you've got something good, we'll try and answer that, or if it's something that potentially could go bigger, that's always the topic for a future show. If you're watching this before Monday, January the 9th is coming up, we have a new episode of Celebrating Autographs with Frank Rich. He's going to be reviewing the autograph haul from Celebration Anaheim and preparing us to look forward to autographs at Celebration London. I think this first episode is probably going to be more of an Anaheim review. And then immediately following that, about an hour later past Celebrating Autographs, we'll have our regular Monday show, Rebels Revisited. And they're going to be, I think this is a watch along episode. They're going to be watching an episode discussing that. I'm sure there will be some discussion and allusions to the Bad Batch in there. Then on Tuesday in the virtual Cantina happy hour, we'll be watching these 2 episodes in the Cantina. I think we're going to start the Cantina at 7. I think we'll start the watch alongs at about 8. And we are going to watch these 2 episodes, and we will have a chance to discuss them live and in person all together. So join us on the Virtual Cantina Network for all things coming up. And Thursday on the Virtual Cantina watch along. We're still in the March to Mandalorian season 3. And we are going to watch along an episode of The Mandalorian, but we have some more special guests. We have been very fortunate this season with some very, very special guests, actors and creators from the Mandalorian show. And I don't think I'm cleared to say exactly who's going to be on Thursday, but I think you'll enjoy it. I think there's some people that have some different insights from those guests that we've seen so far, like this past week with Brendan Wayne, one of the actors who played Din Djarin himself. And we'll be seeing Mr. Wayne again, I hope, in the future for some other watch along. So tune in, join us. And from me, from Kat, from Gio, thanks.
Yeah,
May the
thanks for
force be
joining.
with you.
May the force be with you all.